You've met her. The woman who stays calm while everyone else is panicking. The one who handles chaos like it's just another ordinary day. And part of you admires that. But another part of you wonders something you don't usually say out loud. Is she strong? Or is she numb? Because here's the psychology most people never talk about. Some people aren't naturally resilient. They were trained by life to survive more than they ever should have had to. And survival skills don't automatically turn off when life gets safer. They linger. They shape how you think. They shape how you relate to people. They even shape how your body reacts before anything bad has actually happened. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt exhausted even on a day where nothing went wrong? Have you ever felt tense for no clear reason? Have you ever noticed your body bracing itself, even when life looks calm on the outside? If that sounds familiar, stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand the psychology of people who have gone through too much. And you'll understand why your reactions make more sense than you were ever told. And if you find yourself resonating with this kind of depth and clarity, subscribe to Emotional Growth. This channel was created for women who want psychology that feels grounded, human, and real. When someone has been through too much, their brain doesn't just remember experiences. It adapts to them. That's called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on what it has to survive. But neuroplasticity doesn't only create skills or strengths. It also creates defenses. So instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" a better question becomes, "What did my brain learn it had to do to keep me safe?" Because repeated emotional stress changes the nervous system. If your environment was unpredictable, if safety wasn't consistent, if you had to stay alert for long periods of time, your limbic system, the part of your brain responsible for threat detection, learned to stay on. And that changes your neurochemistry. Your body learned to release cortisol more easily. Dopamine became tied to control and certainty. Serotonin fluctuated depending on how safe your environment felt. And oxytocin, the bonding hormone, became complicated because connection didn't always mean safety. This is why some people don't overreact. They overdetect. Their nervous system became highly trained to notice subtle changes. Tone shifts, pauses, silence, energy in a room. Have you ever walked into a space and immediately felt something was off? Have you ever sensed tension before anyone said a word? Have you ever felt your stomach tighten just from the way someone spoke to you? That's not imagination. That's a psychobiological response. Your body reacts before your conscious mind has time to interpret what's happening. One of the most misunderstood traits of people who have gone through too much is how calm they appear during chaos. A crisis happens, and they're the one thinking clearly. Everyone else is emotional, and they suddenly become practical. Not because they don't feel, but because their brain learned that emotions were unsafe during emergencies. So the prefrontal cortex steps in. It takes control. It focuses on logic, planning, and action. It says, "We don't have time to fall apart right now." The problem is, right now often never ends. This is why some people feel steady in the middle of chaos, but fall apart later, alone in quiet moments when everything is finally calm. Sometimes anxiety doesn't show up during the crisis. It shows up after. Have you ever noticed that you feel more anxious when life slows down? Have you ever felt suspicious of peace, like it won't last? Have you ever felt uncomfortable when you're not needed or useful? That's a nervous system that learned safety was temporary, so it stays ready. People who have been through too much often develop an intense ability to read environments. They don't just notice emotions. They scan for them. They walk into a room and immediately sense emotional temperature. Who's tense? Who's withdrawn? Who feels unsafe? Who might explode? This comes from repeated exposure to unpredictability. Your brain learned, if I can read the room fast enough, I can prevent pain. Over time, that becomes a cognitive behavioral pattern. The cost is subtle but heavy. When you're always scanning, you're rarely resting. Your shoulders stay tight. Your jaw stays clenched. Your breathing stays shallow. Your sleep becomes lighter. Even on good days, your body feels like it's working. Have you ever felt drained just from being around people? Have you ever felt responsible for keeping the atmosphere okay? Have you ever felt like relaxing means letting your guard down too much? That's not weakness. That's conditioning. But here's what happens when you carry hypervigilance into relationships. You don't just observe people. You test them. Not consciously, not with manipulation, but with quiet observation. Your nervous system runs invisible experiments. If I pull back, will they chase me or let me go? If I show vulnerability, will they use it against me? If I need something, will they see me as a burden? This is why people who've been through too much often struggle with compliments. Someone says, "You're amazing," and instead of feeling good, you feel suspicious. Your brain asks, "What do they want?" Or someone gets close, genuinely close, and suddenly you feel the urge to create distance. Not because you don't want connection, but because closeness once came with consequences. In romantic relationships, this creates a painful pattern. You might confuse intensity with intimacy, because intensity feels familiar. It feels like home, even when home was never safe. Or you do the opposite. You choose stable, kind partners, and feel restless, bored, like something is missing. What's missing isn't drama. It's the adrenaline your nervous system learned to associate with love. Have you ever pushed someone away right when things were going well? Have you ever felt more comfortable in complicated relationships than peaceful ones? Have you ever wondered why you struggle to trust people who are actually trustworthy? That's not self-sabotage. That's a nervous system that learned love and danger often arrive together. There's something that often surprises people about those who have been through too much. Instead of becoming cold or bitter, many of them become deeply empathetic. Not in a soft, surface-level way, but in a precise, almost instinctive way. They don't just hear words. They hear what's underneath them. A slight change in tone. A forced smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. A pause that lasts just a second too long. They notice, because pain taught them a language most people never had to learn. They know what unspoken sadness sounds like. They recognize emotional fatigue immediately. They can tell the difference between someone who is angry and someone who is hurting. Have you ever felt like you can sense when someone isn't okay, even when they say they are? Have you ever known exactly when to check in on someone without them asking? Have you ever felt emotionally tuned into others, sometimes more than you are to yourself? That kind of empathy doesn't come from theory. It comes from experience. And while it's beautiful, it comes with a cost. People who have been through too much often experience what psychologists call post-traumatic growth. Not just recovery, growth. Their priorities change. Their tolerance for nonsense drops. Their appreciation for ordinary moments becomes sharper. They notice sunsets more. They value quiet mornings. They cherish calm conversations, not because trauma was good, but because it recalibrated what truly matters. They don't chase intensity anymore. They chase peace. Let me ask you something gently. Do you feel emotionally older than your age? Do you feel disconnected from shallow conversations? Do you feel like you can't pretend anymore? Not with people, not with life? That clarity often comes from having seen what instability costs. So you stop wasting energy on what doesn't feel real. But here's the part no one warns you about. The same people who grow emotionally deeper often live with a nervous system that never fully relaxes. Hypervigilance doesn't always look like fear. Sometimes it looks like preparedness. It looks like having backup plans. It looks like sitting where you can see the door. It looks like thinking 3 steps ahead, always. That's not paranoia. That's a body that learned safety is not guaranteed. Your limbic system doesn't ask, "Is this moment safe?" It asks, "Has this ever turned dangerous before?" So your body stays slightly activated. Cortisol stays elevated. Rest becomes something you earn, not something you're allowed. Have you ever struggled to truly relax, even on vacation? Have you ever felt uneasy when everything seems fine? Have you ever felt like calm makes you restless instead of peaceful? That's not because something is wrong with you. It's because your nervous system learned that danger often arrives quietly. Another subtle pattern shows up here. People who have been through too much often minimize their own pain. They say things like, "It wasn't that bad. Others had it worse. I'm fine." And it sounds humble, but it's usually protective, because admitting struggle once meant being overwhelmed, or being ignored, or being made to feel weak. So strength became survival. And over time, needing help started to feel unsafe. Have you ever felt uncomfortable receiving support? Have you ever downplayed your own exhaustion? Have you ever felt guilty for having needs at all? That's not independence. That's adaptation. There's another contradiction that often confuses people in relationships. Those who have been through too much tend to be intensely loyal and emotionally distant, sometimes at the same time. They will show up for you without hesitation. They will protect you. They will stay. But when it comes to expressing their own needs, they suddenly go quiet. Because closeness, in their past, came with consequences. So even when they crave connection, their body braces when it arrives. Have you ever wanted closeness, but felt tense when someone truly got near? Have you ever pulled back right after a moment of emotional intimacy? Have you ever felt safer being the strong one than the honest one? That contradiction isn't confusion. It's memory stored in the nervous system. One of the most recognizable traits of people who have been through too much is their sense of humor. It's often sharp, sometimes dark, occasionally surprising, not because they're insensitive, but because humor became a way to take power away from pain. When you can laugh at what once overwhelmed you, it loses some of its control. Humor gives the mind distance. It allows the prefrontal cortex to reframe experience instead of being consumed by it. For many people, laughter became armor. Every joke was a small rebellion against the moments that tried to break them. Have you ever noticed that you can joke about your own pain, but struggle to talk about it seriously? Have you ever felt safer making others laugh than letting them see you hurt? Have you ever used humor to redirect a conversation away from something too close to the truth? That's not avoidance. That's survival, expressed creatively. But humor isn't the only defense mechanism that people develop. There's perfectionism. Not the healthy kind that drives excellence, but the kind that whispers, if everything is perfect, nothing can go wrong. Your brain learned that mistakes had consequences, so it tries to eliminate all variables. Every detail must be controlled. Every outcome must be predicted. The cost is exhaustion, because perfection is a moving target that never brings the safety it promises. Then there's productivity, the need to always be doing something, because stillness feels dangerous. Because when you stop moving, feelings catch up. So you fill your calendar. You say yes when you should say no. You stay busy to stay safe. Have you ever felt anxious when you have nothing to do? Have you ever struggled to enjoy rest without feeling guilty? Have you ever realized you don't actually know what you like to do because you're always doing what needs to be done? That's not ambition. That's avoidance disguised as achievement. Another defense shows up as intellectualization. You can analyze your emotions perfectly. You understand the psychology. You know exactly why you feel what you feel. But understanding isn't the same as feeling. Your prefrontal cortex stays engaged to keep the limbic system at bay. You think about pain instead of processing it. You explain trauma instead of releasing it. Knowledge becomes a shield. And sometimes, there's self-sabotage. You get close to something good, a relationship that feels healthy, a job opportunity that excites you, a moment of genuine peace, and you destroy it, not because you don't want good things, but because your nervous system learned that good things don't last. So you take control of the ending. You leave before you can be left. You ruin it before life can ruin it for you. Have you ever walked away from something good and didn't understand why? Have you ever felt like you don't deserve happiness, even when you logically know you do? Have you ever noticed a pattern of things falling apart right when they start working out? That's not weakness. That's a trauma response. Your brain trying to protect you from disappointment by creating it first. Another contradiction shows up in the relationship people like this have with control. They often micromanage small details while remaining strangely calm about massive uncertainties. They'll agonize over a minor decision, but handle a major life shift without visible panic. This happens because early chaos taught them a hard lesson. The big things were never fully controllable, but the small things felt manageable. So the brain learned to focus on what it could regulate, choosing routines, organizing details, creating structure. Those small decisions release dopamine, a sense of temporary safety and certainty. Have you ever felt oddly stressed over tiny choices? Have you ever felt calmer during a real crisis than during everyday life? Have you ever noticed that control brings relief, but never lasts? That's not inconsistency. That's adaptation. And then there's the paradox most people never notice. People who have been through too much often appear emotionally steady, but internally, they carry grief. Not the grief of losing someone, the grief of losing a version of themselves. They grieve the self who trusted easily, the self who laughed without scanning the room, the self who didn't rehearse conversations or brace for disappointment. It's a quiet grief, one that's hard to explain. How do you tell someone you miss a version of yourself you can barely remember? How do you describe being homesick for an inner place that no longer exists? This grief doesn't make people bitter. It makes them observant, intentional, protective of peace. Because once you know the cost of chaos, you stop treating calm as optional. Have you ever felt nostalgia for a time when you didn't have to be so aware? Have you ever wondered who you might have been without certain experiences? Have you ever felt sadness not for what happened, but for who you had to become? That's not weakness. That's mourning. This is why people who have been through too much value safe people so deeply. They're drawn to consistency, to emotional clarity, to relationships that feel predictable, not intense. They don't chase excitement anymore. They chase stability, not because they're boring, but because they know what unpredictability costs. Their nervous system learned that peace is precious. And here's something important to understand. The brain that learned hypervigilance can also learn safety. Neuroplasticity doesn't disappear once you're an adult. New experiences can create new neural pathways. Repeated calm can soften old responses. Gentle consistency can retrain the nervous system. But the process is slow, and it requires patience, because you're not undoing habits. You're updating survival strategies. If you've been through too much, your nervous system doesn't respond well to advice like, just relax, or try not to think about it, because relaxation isn't a decision. It's a physiological state, and your body can't enter that state until it feels safe. This is where many people get stuck. They try to think their way out of survival. But survival lives in the body, not in logic. So the first step is enforcing calm. It's teaching safety. Safety comes from repetition, not intensity. Your nervous system learns through patterns, through predictability, through experiences that end without harm. This is why small rituals matter more than dramatic breakthroughs. The same cup of tea in the evening, the same walk at the same time of day, the same music that signals rest. These moments send quiet messages to the body. This is familiar. This is not dangerous. Over time, cortisol begins to lower. The body learns that it doesn't need to stay on high alert. Another important shift is learning to name what's happening without judging it. Instead of saying, something is wrong with me, you might say, my body is activated. That simple reframing engages the prefrontal cortex. It creates space between sensation and story. The body calms faster when it's not being criticized. Have you ever noticed that your anxiety gets worse when you fight it? Have you ever felt calmer simply by understanding what your body was doing? Have you ever realized that awareness itself can be soothing? That's because understanding reduces fear. There's also something powerful about reducing small sources of stress. Your nervous system doesn't separate big threats from constant minor ones. Clutter, noise, rushing, too many notifications. These keep the body slightly activated all day. Creating order isn't about perfection. It's about relief. Have you ever felt calmer in a clean, quiet space? Have you ever noticed your breathing change when things slow down? Have you ever realized how much tension you carry simply from being overstimulated? That awareness matters. Let me share something specific about working with the body. Your nervous system responds to physical signals before it responds to thoughts. This is why you can't think your way into calm. But you can breathe your way there. There's a technique called grounding. When your mind is racing or your body feels activated, you pause. And you notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. This isn't distraction. It's orientation. You're reminding your nervous system, I am here. I am now. I am safe. The vagus nerve, which runs from your brain to your gut, is the highway of your nervous system. When it's toned, your body can shift from fight or flight to rest and digest. You can activate it through slow, deep breathing, especially long exhales, cold water on your face, humming or singing, gentle pressure on your chest. These aren't rituals. They're biology. Movement also releases what the body has been holding. Not intense exercise, but intuitive movement, shaking, stretching, swaying. even crying. These discharge stored activation. Animals do this instinctively after danger passes. Humans were taught to suppress it. Have you ever felt the urge to shake during stress but stopped yourself? Have you ever cried and felt lighter afterward, even though nothing changed externally? Have you ever noticed your body naturally wants to move when processing something difficult? That's not weakness. That's release. And here's something powerful about co-regulation. Your nervous system doesn't just respond to your own cues. It responds to the nervous systems around you. When you're near someone who is genuinely calm, your heart rate can synchronize with theirs. Your breathing can slow to match theirs. This is why safe people matter so much. Not because they give advice, but because their presence regulates you. Have you ever felt your anxiety decrease just by sitting next to someone calm? Have you ever noticed how certain people make your body relax without saying a word? Have you ever felt more grounded after being with someone who feels safe? That's co-regulation. And it teaches your nervous system that calm is possible. Another gentle practice involves safe dependence. Not dramatic vulnerability. Not emotional exposure all at once. Small moments of relying on someone and having it go well. Asking for a small favor. Sharing a mild uncertainty. Letting someone help without apologizing. These experiences teach the nervous system that connection doesn't always lead to pain. Oxytocin begins to associate with safety again. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable receiving help can feel? Have you ever pushed through that discomfort and realized nothing bad happened? Have you ever felt relief you didn't expect? That's learning. One of the most overlooked skills is learning to downshift the body before reasoning with the mind. When the body is activated, logic doesn't land. Simple physical cues help. Long exhalations, relaxing the jaw, dropping the shoulders, feeling your feet on the ground. These signals tell the nervous system it can slow down. Only then does reflection become useful. This is how cognitive behavioral patterns actually change. Not through force, but through timing. And finally, boundaries. People who have been through too much often tolerate too much. Not because they lack strength, but because they learned endurance early. A boundary doesn't have to be dramatic to be effective. Sometimes it's simply choosing not to explain yourself. Choosing rest over availability. Choosing consistency over intensity. Have you ever felt relief after protecting your peace, even quietly? Have you ever realized how much energy certain situations cost you? Have you ever noticed that calm grows when you stop overgiving? That's regulation. There's something important we need to talk about. Something that often gets overlooked. People who have been through too much tend to disconnect from their bodies. Not intentionally, but as a survival strategy. When physical sensations became overwhelming. When emotions felt too big to hold. When pain had nowhere to go. The mind learned to separate from the body. Psychologists call this dissociation. But it doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it just looks like not noticing you're hungry until you're shaking. Not realizing you're exhausted until you collapse. Not feeling pain until it becomes unbearable. Your body sends signals. But somewhere along the way, you learn to ignore them. Because listening to your body once meant feeling things you couldn't afford to feel. So you pushed through. You kept going. You prioritized everyone else's needs over your own physical reality. And over time, the body stopped being a source of information. It became something to manage. Something to override. Something to control. Have you ever realized you've been holding your breath without noticing? Have you ever felt surprised by how much pain you're actually in once you stop moving? Have you ever struggled to answer the question, what do you need right now? That disconnection is protective, but it comes with a cost. Because the body holds the story. Chronic tension in your shoulders. Tightness in your jaw. A knot in your stomach that never fully goes away. Unexplained pain that doctors can't find a cause for. These aren't random. They're memories stored in tissue. Your body is trying to tell you something. But you were trained not to listen. And here's the paradox. The same people who are deeply intuitive about others often have no idea what's happening inside themselves. They can sense when someone else is struggling. But they can't tell if they're tired, sad, or in pain. Relearning to trust your body is part of healing. It starts with simple questions. Am I hungry? Am I cold? Do I need to rest? Not should I eat? Not can I rest? But what does my body actually need right now? And then, this is the hard part, honoring that. Not treating rest as something you earn. Not seeing hunger as inconvenient. Not viewing your body's needs as weakness. Your body isn't your enemy. It's been trying to protect you this entire time. Self-care isn't indulgence. It's reconnection. It's learning that pleasure isn't dangerous. That softness isn't weakness. That you're allowed to feel good without waiting for permission. Have you ever felt guilty for enjoying something? Have you ever stopped yourself from relaxing because it felt wrong? Have you ever realized you don't actually know what brings you joy because you never gave yourself permission to find out? That's not selfishness. That's recovery. Your body deserves gentleness. Not just productivity. Not just function. But care. If you've been listening and recognizing yourself in these patterns, there's something important you need to hear. You are not broken. Your nervous system is not failing you. It did exactly what it was designed to do. It adapted. It learned how to keep you functioning in environments that asked too much of you for too long. And while those strategies helped you survive, they don't all need to come with you into the next chapter of your life. That's the difference between survival and healing. Survival is about staying alive. Healing is about allowing yourself to feel safe again. And safety isn't dramatic. It's subtle. It shows up as slower mornings, as fewer explanations, as relationships that don't require performance. It shows up when your body stops bracing for impact. People who have been through too much often believe they need to stay strong to stay safe. But strength doesn't have to mean tension. It doesn't have to mean doing everything alone. It doesn't have to mean being ready for the worst at all times. Real strength is flexibility. The ability to soften when the moment allows it. The ability to rest without guilt. The ability to trust your body again. Have you ever wondered who you might become if you didn't have to be the strongest person in the room? Have you ever imagined how your life might feel if calm stopped feeling suspicious? Have you ever considered that peace could be something you practice, not something you earn? Those questions matter. There's grief in this process, not the kind that overwhelms, but the kind that gently surfaces. Grief for the version of you that didn't get to exist. Grief for the ease you didn't get to know. Grief for the softness that wasn't protected. That grief doesn't weaken you. It deepens you. It makes you more compassionate, more intentional, more selective with your energy. And slowly, as your nervous system learns that danger isn't constant anymore, your body begins to release what it's been holding. People who have been through too much don't just survive. They develop a nuanced understanding of what it means to be human. They understand that life can be beautiful and painful, often at the same time. That strength and tenderness can coexist. That healing doesn't mean becoming who you were before. It means becoming who you are now, without living in constant defense. Your experiences didn't ruin you. They gave you insight. And insight, when paired with safety, becomes wisdom. If this video felt like it was speaking directly to you, you're not alone. There are many women quietly carrying this depth, functioning, contributing, loving, while their nervous systems are still catching up to a safer reality. This channel exists for that exact space. And if this kind of content supports you, subscribe to Emotional Growth. New videos like this are here to help you build calm, clarity, and emotional stability, one conversation at a time. And if you'd like to go deeper into this work, I created a practical guide to emotional self-mastery to support you. It was designed to help you regulate your emotions and build inner stability step by step at your own pace. You'll find the guide in the first pinned comment below. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.